It's sunny outside and I'm dressed like I'm going to a funeral. Let's talk about the United Nations as it turns 80. The United Nations is an intergovernmental organisation created in 1945 not to deliver us to heaven, but to save us from hell. Essentially, governments learnt the lessons from the failure of the League of Nations, which was created after World War I but collapsed in the 1930s. Unlike the League of Nations, the United Nations rewards power. What do I mean by this? Well, there are 193 states in the UN General Assembly, but only 15 in the United Nations Security Council. 10 of these rotate, but 5 of them are VIP members: UK, US, China, Russia and France. They gave themselves privileged positions, including a permanent seat on the Security Council and the right to veto, which we'll talk about next week in V for Veto. For critics, this inequality explains why they view the United Nations as a colonial project. For example, there are now more countries in Africa than there were in the United Nations when it was formed in 1945. Despite this, not a single African state has a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. This brings us back to power. The Security Council is primarily responsible for maintaining international peace and security. If a weaker state had a permanent seat on the Security Council, can it really vote in favour of war if it's bringing very little in terms of collective security? That said, there are 70,000 United Nations peacekeepers around the world maintaining international peace and security. If you Google the top 10 contributors, you will see that the Global South plays a major role. The Security Council often captures the headlines. It's important to recognise that within the UN there are specialist agencies such as the World Food Programme and UNICEF that do tremendous work protecting people in the most extreme and violent circumstances on planet Earth. In Sudan, right now as I talk to you, there are 600,000 people in risk of starving to death. The World Food Programme is doing its best, but it's had to suspend activities in refugee camps because they're under attack by armed groups. This brings us back to the Security Council and our desperate need for them to help manage international peace and security. Sadly, the permanent 5 members of the Security Council are acting as great irresponsibles in that they're failing to fulfil international duties and obligations. Bigger problem is that the breakdown of rules and laws and institutions such as the United Nations can increase the risk of war within the security dilemma. In other words, even if America first makes America stronger, America may end up stronger in a more violent world. As studies on global order show, powerful leaders often fail to recognise that they need the United Nations to help them carry the burden of power in the anarchical realm. Overall, as the United Nations turns 80, should we be giving it a birthday cake? Well, I would give a slice to all the hard workers, but the P5 won't be getting a birthday card from me. Remember, every time you share one of my videos, a fairy gets their wings.